Yes, the biggest demerit I can think of is it is an unnatural method. Okay, it's not a natural method. What do I mean when I say that it is an unnatural method? I have discussed this so many times. I repeat, the natural order of learning a language is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Okay, these are the four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This is the order of learning. This is the natural order of learning. A child first listens the language, even his mother tongue. This is how he learns his mother tongue. How does he learn his mother tongue? He listens the words and sentences from his parents, okay, and the people around him. Then he starts speaking words, okay. He starts speaking in fragments, I must say. Then he learns how to read the mother tongue, and this is the last skill that he learns. So LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This is the natural way of learning a language. But when you are learning English language through translation method, you do not learn the language in this order. Okay, you do not learn it naturally. That is why this method is called as an unnatural method. The natural order of learning is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This is how a child learns, as I told you, his language, his mother tongue. A child first listens to the persons around him, utter the sentences in his mother tongue. He learns and understands them and gradually starts producing them. Translation method doesn't follow this method. In the translation method, the teaching of language starts with the teaching of reading. What do we teach? We start, teaching the foreign language with reading. We write words, and he learns to read mat, M-A-T, mat, R-A-T, rat, C-A-T, cat. So we teach them, right, words which rhyme. So he reproduces them, or he speaks the words after the teacher. This is how we teach at the initial stages. This is how the foreign language is taught in India. I mean, you go to any school, you would find that teacher is writing the words there on the board. He's reading them out. The rhyming words are written because they're easy to learn. Kill, pill, pill, okay, or Jack and Jill. This is how. Since the same morphemes are used, same, so you have the same sounds here. This is that's how the students pick up. The children pick up. The kids, the young ones, pick up how to read them. So the child is taught first to read, and he's not taught in the way the mother tongue is learned, in the natural order. So what is done here? This is the most important skill here. Which skill do you think is the most important? All skills are very important. There's no doubt about it. But this one is the most important. If you know speaking in a language, that means you know it. We can speak only the languages that we are taught. We can speak Hindi, we can speak Urdu, we can speak English. And the other languages we have simply heard, listen to people speaking around us. But we do not know. I know about Malayalam, but I do not know how to speak in Malayalam. Okay, I can make just a few sentences, just fragments. I know just little bit of it. In Eniki Alpam Malayalam Arya, when I speak the sentence in Malayalam, the Galites feel very good. They feel very delighted. Why? Because I can speak a bit there. Or say Eniki Tamil Teri Adi. That means I don't know Tamil. And Eniki Malayalam Alpam Arya, I know Malayalam a little bit. So I don't know how to speak, but I know just a few sentences, which I have picked up from my friends or from the people around me. So What is neglected? Speech is neglected. We are talking about demerits, we are talking about disadvantages of translation method. So what is done? What is the big harm? What is the biggest demerit? That speech is neglected. Translation method lays emphasis on reading alone. Students are, they are asked to read. Teacher makes them stand. Okay, come on, Joy, stand up. Read the first paragraph. Yes, now you sit down. Anil, you stand up. Now we read the second paragraph. Okay. Yes, Lakshmi, now you stand up. Read the third paragraph. Okay. Yes. Mamta, you stand up now. You read the fourth paragraph. Okay. Aslam, now you read the fifth. This is how. This is how it goes on. This is how you teach. So what do you see? Translation method lays emphasis on reading alone. And as a result, what happens? Speech is neglected. Speaking is undoubtedly the most important skill. If you know speaking, that means you know the language. The students are not provided any practice in oral work. Like in direct method or in say structural approach to language teaching, you give oral practice to your students. You write sentences and you ask them to make sentences on their own, following the example. Like, I write a sentence. I read a book. Now, you can ask your students to make sentences on the basis of this. I read a book. I read a novel. Or we read a book. They read a book. This is how. So, if you are giving practice like this, then they learn speaking also. But this oral work is not given. This explains why many of our students, even at the college level, are tongue-tied so far as speaking of English is concerned. I'm very sorry, and how many? You're 40 out here, but only 10 of you can speak in English. 10 of you can communicate English. Why can't others do? Because they have either never tried and they do not have confidence. And why do they not have confidence? Why are they hesitant? Because they have been taught through translation method. Now, this is not your fault. This is the fault of the system. This is the fault of the method. Since you have been taught through the translation method, you are not able, a majority of you, I must say, is not able to speak in English fluently. Although I know that you can write well, you write good answers, they make sense. I must say they make sense. But if I ask you, okay, come on, yes, Vijay, you stand up. Or Lokesh, you stand up. Come on, tell me something about the storm scene. Okay, comment on the storm scene in King Lear. Now, you would be at your wit's end. Why would you be at your wit's end? Because you cannot speak in English, and you think if you would start speaking in English, and you would not be able to make correct sentences, your pronunciation would be faulty, and your friends might laugh at you, they might ridicule you, mock at you. This is what. Although these are just I must say very unreasonable thing. There's no sense in it. Let the people around you make fun of you. But if you wish to learn speaking in English, you ought to speak. If a child, doesn't learn to walk, then he won't be able to walk ever. If you fear of falling down, if a child fears of falling, then he won't be able to walk. Same is the case with learning also. Speaking. You would not be able to learn speaking English unless you try. Try to speak amongst yourself, and don't be hesitant. Don't feel that others would ridicule you if you're making wrong sentences or if your pronunciation is faulty. Initially, it's like this with everybody. It's a foreign language after all. Okay? What is it? It's a foreign language. So you can make errors. You can make mistakes. You make mistakes even in your mother tongue. Do you speak English, your mother tongue, Hindi, faultlessly? No, you don't. You're making mistakes of structure, sentence structure. Your syntax is not proper. Your pronunciation is not proper. So when you make mistakes there in your mother tongue, you can make in the foreign language also. But it is better that you start speaking. I've been telling you. I've been telling you almost, right from the beginning of the session that please start speaking. Yes. So what is done in here? What demerit I was talking about? I was talking about that speech is neglected in the translation method. Our students, they started studying English. They started studying the foreign language right from 6th standard. This is what? Is it not? Yes. Come on, tell me. Yes, Monica. When did you start learning English? You started learning English from 6th standard onward. It is in the 6th standard that English is introduced in our schools, in vernacular schools, or say in the state board schools, or say in Hindi medium schools. So from 6th to 12th you studied English there in your school, and for 3 years you learned at the undergraduate level, and now you are in the MA final year. So this is, say, I must say this is the 5th year there in this college. This is your 5th year in this department. So you have been, studying English, say, for almost 6 plus 5, 11 years. So you have been studying English for 11 years, yet you are not able to speak English. Why? Just think over it. And as far as speaking your mother tongue is concerned, you pick up the mother tongue just in 11 months. A child of 11 months speaks mother tongue very fluently. Okay? Very fluently. Yes. Why? Because that is the right way, that is the natural way of learning. He listens to the people around him and then he picks up the structures of his mother tongue. The same you should do. All the teachers there in the department, they speak in English. And some of your friends also, they speak in English. So you also, those who are hesitant, start speaking in English. If you start speaking English, then you will be able to come over your fear, your hesitation. And I must tell you that English language is the easiest language of the world. It's the easiest language. And so much material is available. You can watch videos also there on the internet. There's so many videos available on YouTube. Listen to those videos, right? And try to learn this speaking skill. This is very important. Try to attain this skill. So I was telling you that after learning English for so many years, we find that our students are tongue-tied as far as speaking of English is concerned. So this is a big drawback. This is a big demerit of translation method. It is often observed that in a class which is taught through the translation method, the students, as I said, listen more to the mother tongue than to the foreign language. If you're taught through translation method, why have you not learned English hitherto? Why couldn't you? Because the teacher was speaking in Hindi, you also is speaking in Hindi. So even in the English class, where Hindi should be totally banned, where Hindi should be kept out of the classroom, what was done? The teacher was speaking in Hindi and you too were speaking Hindi, and that's why you couldn't learn it. So foreign language gets a very little time. It's a foreign language class, it is an English class, yet very little time is spared to use English words and English sentences. It doesn't help the students to learn correct pronunciation of English language, of the target language, because they don't listen to their teacher to speak words and sentences in English. The teacher also speaks in Hindi. The pronunciation is very faulty, very weird. So you learn right pronunciation only when your teacher speaks. And now we have learned phonetics, so I expect all of you to have a right pronunciation, because many of us we find these days are able to speak in English. Okay, some of you can even speak fluently, but the pronunciation is very faulty. Pronunciation has to be good. If your pronunciation is good, you gain confidence and others are also attracted towards you. So what I'm trying to say here, language learning, is a habit formation process. What is it? It's a habit formation process. The students fall to form the habit of speaking the foreign language fluently because they do not form habit. They do not have the habit of speaking English. They do not have the habit. They have the habit of speaking Hindi. They listen to Hindi everywhere. They listen to Hindi there. They're in their homes, okay? At their homes, or say in the market, or even in the classroom, they are speaking Hindi. While you're talking amongst yourself, which language are you using? You all using Hindi. That's not done. Since you are doing PG in English, you are expected to speak only in English. Not only as long as you are there in the Department of English. Even outside, if you happen to meet somebody from the Department of English, you ought to speak in Hindi. Okay? So you have to form the habit of speaking. Form the habit of speaking in English. Okay? So, yes. What would I say? Like I was telling you about the S plus B plus O. What is it? It's a pattern. This method, the translation method, does not provide any pattern practice. It does not provide any pattern practice. A person has learned a language only when he's made its patterns as habits. Once you make the patterns of English language as your habit, then that means you have learned the language. Like transitive and intransitive pattern. You already learned in MAPBS. We had this transitive and intransitive. What is transitive? Yes, remember? Transitive, yes, sentences which have an object are called as transitive, and sentences which do not have an
object.
What are they called? Intransitive. Intransitive. If you have just S plus V plus C or S plus V plus A, then it is called as intransitive because there is no object. And if you have an object S plus V plus O, then you call it transitive. And how do you check whether it is an object or not? You make a passive voice of it. If you have an object, you can make a passive voice. If there is no object, you cannot make a passive voice. So what I'm trying to say, if you know these patterns S plus V, or S plus V plus O, S plus V plus A, S plus V plus C, S plus V plus IO plus DO, S plus V plus O plus C plus A, all the elements here, all the elements of a sentence. If you know these patterns, then you know the language. The translation method does not provide any practice to students to learn these patterns as habits. It is this lack of practice on the part of the students which is responsible for the failure of this method. Okay? This method is not considered to be a successful method. This method is considered to be a failure. Okay? Why? Because students do not become fluent in the foreign language. That is why it is considered to be a failure. I just gave the example. You learned English language for almost 11 years, yet you are not able to speak it. So what would I call it? I would call it a failure. This is how it has been described by linguists. They call it a failure. They call it wasteful. They call it wasteful. Why do they call it wasteful? Because for so many years, for so many days, for thousands of hours, you have studied this, yet you are not able to speak. So it's wasteful. So I was discussing the demerits, and I'm still continuing it, discussing the demerits of translation, the disadvantages of translation method. So what was the first disadvantage? That it is an unnatural method. What is it? It is an unnatural method, or it does not give you pattern practice, or you may say speech is neglected. Speech is